6 couples made up of wheelchair users and able-bodied celebrity partners are dancing against each other every week, and the winning pair will go on to represent the UK for the very first time in the Sports European Championship.
Well, in a moment, we'll talk to contestant Diana Morgan-Hill, her partner, swimming champion Mark Foster, no stranger to the dance floor, of course, and lead choreographer Brian Fortuna, who hardly needs any introduction at all. Morning to you guys. We'll talk in a second. First, let's take a look.
This is ballroom dance, like you've never seen before. Wheelchair Ballroom pairs able-bodied and disabled dancers, and it's just as competitive as any other. But it's an international competition that the UK has never taken part in. Until now. In 4 weeks' time, one of these couples will be chosen to represent the UK at the European Championships in Israel. But right now, they are all complete novices.
Never ever heard of wheelchair dancing before. I thought, oh my God, how are they going to do that? You know, it's going to look stupid.
I just didn't know this existed. Not in a sense, in a sense.
When I first heard about it, I thought it was one of my mates winding me up.
Yeah, it's a bit of a joke. How would you dance in a wheelchair?
And Mark, Diana and Brian are here with us. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Brian, I think I'm going to start with you because this is completely new to all of us, really, apart from yourself, because you've been involved in it for 8 years. Your mother started it in America.
The story was about 8 years ago. We had a couple come into our dance studio, and the man was in a wheelchair, and the lady was able-bodied. And they came to my mother and they said, "Sandy, we want to learn how to dance." My mom said, "Well, geez, I've never done anything like this before." And she started to experiment with the dancing for about a year. And after a couple of years into it, she decided that this was a system that needed a structured syllabus, like all other forms of dance. And she wrote, to my knowledge, the first American-style syllabus for wheelchair dancing in the world. And the program took off, and we started to have wedding couples coming in different classes, and I went out with my partner, whose name was Stephanie Skumanich, and I started doing demonstrations around, and it's an activity that became a part of our lives.
Wow. Diana, had you ever danced in a wheelchair before this?
No, only a little bit, after a little bit of drink. After I used to play a lot of wheelchair tennis, so to get on the disco floor, but I always felt very limited by it because before my train accident, which is about 20 years ago, I was always first on the dance floor and would get this incredible, you know, fever of movement and a great feeling of joy and expression. And I was a little bit cynical when I heard about the wheelchair dancing. To my absolute surprise and complete joy, it totally brought back those feelings.
Did it?
Thanks to Brian and Mark. Brilliant dancer.
And a very different experience to the Strictly experience.
It wasn't. I mean, the dances in inverted commas are the same. It was at first you were thinking, how does this work and how does this connection work between two people? But the music's the same, the timing's the same. The steps are virtually the same as it were, and it's a connection between two people again. Yeah. So from that point of view, it is the same thing. But I must confess, with Brian's help, I was a lot better dancer after the show than the last show.
Thank you, Mark.
You know, the training for this is never going to be easy. We've got a clip of you two during your training, and let's see how it goes.
Di and Mark want to perfect the complicated spins, ending their routine.
Coach round, please.
You okay physically?
Oh, were you all right after that?
And it was more the shock. I will never, ever let anybody ever put my wheelchair together. You have to take the wheels off to transport it. Somebody else had put one of the wheels on and they hadn't put it on correctly. So it was just, you know, always make sure your equipment is all okay.
Yes.
There were lots of nerves, tears, tantrums and arguments, weren't there, on all sides? Was it more tense than the regular competition, do you think?
For me it was, because I knew that this was a really big program, and I knew that the future of wheelchair ballroom dancing, especially in the UK, really depended on this program. The beautiful thing about wheelchair ballroom dancing is it takes the barriers that exist between the disabled world and able-bodied persons, and it gets rid of those.
And you had to convince these people that they could do it, because they're all new to it, weren't they?
Yeah, and not only were the wheelchair users not accustomed to dancing, but most of them weren't accustomed to being in front of cameras, doing interviews, having to stand in front of judges. So it was a really nerve-wracking experience for everyone involved. I think they coped extremely well.
Tell us about this dance. What are you doing, Mark?
We're doing the tango.
I know you say that to me as if I should know. And as the only person sitting on the sofa who hasn't had a Strictly experience.
Technically, Brian obviously should be explaining the actual dance, etc., etc. But I mean, it was a minute and a half routine, and we trained. I mean, Brian, bless his heart, was doing that was the first week 6 routines, second week 5 routines. You know, it wasn't just doing his one routine that he does on Strictly.
You though, Diana, were used to moving around at speed because you played wheelchair tennis quite a bit, haven't you?
Yeah, so I was used to. I knew what a wheelchair was capable of.
Yeah.
This was just the first week. I mean, it got. I ended up taking my prosthetic legs off for the second week because they weigh about 2 stone. This one is false right up to here. And once I'd done that, I mean, Brian, you know, he did ask me to, and the result was just astounding. Losing 2 stone in weight, and he would put me into what had been a 6-turn spin. He put me into a 15-turn spin, and the wheelchair came off the floor. I felt slightly queasy afterwards.
She kept going spin me backwards, it will unwind me again, and Brian's like, doesn't work like that once you're dizzy. You don't
so again, this feeling of freedom and, you know,
well, I was going to say,
do
you feel differently? Because when you had your train accident 20 years ago, it took away your mobility and took away so much of your independence.
Yes, it did. And there's a few things that one really misses. The amount of energy one loses in a situation like that. For me, it was walking on a beach in bare feet, and it was absolutely dancing. You know, I said it, that is the one thing I missed. And thanks to this programme, Brian, Mark, and everybody, I've got that back. I'm so glad.
One big difference, of course, there is no live vote, is there? You get the judges. Who have we got? James Jordan.
All down to our judges.
And
Addy.
Yes, I bet he was.
Oh, yeah.
I bet he was. You can imagine James being Ming the Merciless, can't you, really? Yeah, he certainly looks with his hairdo, he looks like it, too.
Well, not only that, but I think that the judges were able to offer some really nice insight, and we had some varying opinions. James and Ola are from the ballroom and Latin world, and they're accustomed to knowing what to look for in ballroom and Latin technique. Addy is accustomed to different movements in wheelchairs and how you should be doing that.
And people will remember him from the trailers on BBC One.
From
playing basketball and that sort of. And this was all for a competition because the UK hasn't competed in this before.
The UK has never had a representative at the European Championships, and thanks to the BBC and Fever Media, we now have a representative for the UK, which is incredible.
Well, well done.
And we'll be able to see how it goes in the programme. Thank you very much,
guys.
Brian.
Thanks very much. Thank you. You can see Dancing on Wheels tonight, 9 o'clock, BBC 3.
Now, the time is 4 minutes away from 9 o'clock. We've been talking about rationing this morning. An egg, 3½ rashers of bacon, a small cupful of sugar. That is for a whole week, or was. It may sound like the starvation